I think it's a type of thing that I don't feel like I've sort of found my perfect way to do it yet, but I still think about it every time. Oh, that's such a good question, Rodrigo. How do you run and plan mazes? You have ideas for an underwater maze dungeon, but having a lot of trouble making something playable. I don't feel like I've cracked it yet. I think that here's the best iteration. Here's what I would do if I had to run a maze like in a week, or a labyrinth, you could call it, or something like that. Here's what I think could be fun. I would so I would make a maze. I would draw up a maze, even if it is like literally a hand drawn, like it's a maze that almost like you'd find on the back of like a kid's placemat at a restaurant. I'd make a maze as complex as I want it to be, and then I would devise a set of either rollable or like planned encounters that I can drop in. So like, here's an encounter that happens at a crossroads. Here's one that happens at a dead end. Here's one that happens at whatever. So I'd have like a handful of those that, like I said, either I can roll them into existence or I can just pull them in as appropriate. And then I would say, so you guys are in a maze. Who's going to navigate? I would make the party pick one person to navigate. I would literally, sight unseen, I would just take the map, again, as complicated as it is, and I'd put it in front of them and I'd say, you have 15 seconds. And they would go like, basically wherever they draw to, that's where the party got next. And I would say, okay, great, give it back. And then we'll do what happens there. Because if they only have those like temporary time with it, it's going to have them making decisions about how they navigate. They could just programmatically, like, let's stick to the right wall. I'm just going to do this all the way through. It's like, okay, you're going to hit more encounters that way. Or they could take a risk. Maybe they look through the maze and they go, I think this will do it. They start to draw it. Oh, you didn't quite make it this time. I think that'd be really exciting and interesting. Keep in mind, I've never tested that before, but I think that could be a fun way to do it. Generally, when I've run it in the past, I've just sort of treated it as a set of skill checks they can make. They could sort of devise their best way, how they want to navigate. Everybody's got their plan of like how they would sort of work through a labyrinth, how they would work through a maze. Let them sort of throw those ideas out there, turn it into a set of checks that they can make as a group or individually, and then based on the success or failure of that, basically narrate their progress through the maze and how many encounters they hit as a result of that. Yeah. So I think it's a type of thing that I don't feel like I've sort of found my perfect way to do it yet, but I still think about it every time. The thought process you're going through, Rodrigo, I feel like, I guess I don't want to project onto other DMs, but for me, definitely, I think about it every time a labyrinth or a maze comes up. I don't know.
Do not
Jesse,
recommend
do you
a
have
map. I do not recommend a map for a labyrinth. I've tried it, and no matter what, it ends up not fun.
It's well, have you ever tried the way that I just described it though? Because using a map as like actually placing them and moving them through, I agree that probably wouldn't be fun. But as a test of, because here's the thing, every time you put that next map in front of them, you could change it. Like every time you could be like, okay, now here you go. And you'd be like, wait a minute, this is a different map than before. It's like, you have 10 more seconds. It's like, like, I feel like there's a way to like have fun with that. Probably only a couple times and people are like, all right, like you're screwing with me. But
otherwise, what I liked the maze. Let me just check, because there was one in Tomb of Annihilation.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like you roll a D100, and it was a discovery of which way they're going. So it's like 1 through 70, nothing. 71 through 75 remains, etc., etc. And then whenever they found a key that was 85 to 100, that would get them out of there. But you could kind of replace that as they're exploring the maze, and do that with like a skill check and stuff like that.
Yep. Yeah. When all else fails, skill checks to the rescue.
It's funny how you can tell certain brands by the name of the things. Like you can tell you're playing in the Forgotten Realms, or like a Forgotten Realms module, by some of the names the NPCs have.
I thought you were going to say because of no discernible political structure whatsoever. Because there's no even hint of a king or anyone, any sort of governing bodies over anything. That's another way you can tell.
In the Forgotten Realms.
Yeah. Or at least Sword Coast, like all their new modern stuff. There's not even a whiff of it. It's like you get a local sheriff and that's about it.
And I was like, oh yeah, we're part of the Lord's Alliance. Well, why aren't they helping you with this? Oh, well, it's not a
It's been
very
at
good
least
alliance.
it's been at least 15 years since they were really detailed in a book of lore, so we can't really tell you. They disappeared.
They are releasing a Sword Coast Adventure Guide, another like an updated one, and one for the for players.
Okay.
New
And
sub.
I should be clear. I'm taking a easy pot shot at that just because I am, but like I don't think it's super necessary. It's one of those things that's not necessary until it's necessary. Until all of a sudden you need it and then you really notice that you don't have it. And it's like, well,
I like.
why don't I have it?
I one thing that I moved away from was like defined boundaries of countries,
Okay.
just onto more like regional areas that they control,
Hmm.
which is more historically accurate. But then it also, if it ever comes up, you can the players can find the town complaining about paying taxes to two different governments.
Yeah. Well, it's almost like it feels easier in a fantasy setting to think of how the people are managed as like a series of guilds anyway. Like, okay, like maybe not guild in like a loose sense, but like these are basically just groups that exist with various either like power backing them or money or rich people or something, and they all exert power. Like I find that a lot more interesting to think about rather than like, okay, well, I guess if I Google like medieval, you have a king and then you have the like what are all the levels of this stuff that have ever existed? It's like, okay, screw all that. What are the powerful groups that have exerted like their will over this region for a long time, and how do they exist? Like who are the people in charge? And then I think it gets a lot easier to think about.
In the Worlds Without Number book, on one of the rollable tables sections, it's like how do they determine who's like the ruling class?
Hmm.
And one of them that came up was fun. It's basically which school did they attend? So it's like your
It's
alumni determine your political status.
yeah, it's kind of true. Well, it's interesting, right? Because there's this. I feel like a dungeon, like a world designer, like your gut is for everybody to have some sort of meaningful allegiance to the things that they believe. When that's true for some people, but the vast majority, it's like, well, how do people pick their what their opinions are in our world? It's like they mostly don't. They're mostly just kind of handed to them through, you know, an accident of birth or just like osmosis from like whatever they spend a lot of time around, and then that just becomes their identity. They haven't thought about it. Like, and I mean thought about it in the sense that they go like, well, fundamentally at my core, I'm this and therefore this and therefore this, and now here I am with all of my alignments. It's like people don't really work that way, and embracing that in a fantasy world makes it a lot easier too. It's like, oh, not everybody has to. Not all of these, you know, bartender at the tavern can like justify the king's tax. Like he's just like, I don't know, man. That's
I'm
just
just a bartender.
yeah, you know. I just like the king. I don't know. He seems like a cool guy. Like that would be enough.
Or it's like, it's like, yeah, in Railroad, it's like, oh, how did you end up with that as your favorite sports team? My dad liked him.
That's right. So this is now a decision you make for just all time. But yeah, kind of.